Okay, let's look at shift work. A number of our clients are shift workers and have questions on this, so we will cover the main points. First of all, when should I eat? When should I not eat? What you want to think about is when you're doing shift work, there's a 12-hour period where essentially you're going to be working or awake, whether that's 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. That is now your daytime. So this is the time when you will eat. The time when you will eat is the 12-hour period when you're awake. The time when you won't eat is the 12-hour period where you're supposed to be asleep. So from 12 p.m. to 12 a.m., whatever it is, that's your eating period when you're awake. Then you'll go to bed. 12 a.m. to 12 p.m. supposed to be a sleeping period. You won't eat during that time. It's very easy then when the longer we're awake to overconsume calories. So when you give yourself a little window or time period when you're supposed to be eating, that narrows that down and takes the confusion out of it. It also, in terms of circadian cycles, will help your body steady that circadian cycle, circadian rhythm, sleep pattern a little bit. If you eat when you're supposed to be sleeping, your brain and body get really confused about what's going on. So only eat in the times when you're awake. Here are some other little tips that we need to take into account, because when we don't sleep, it affects our ghrelin and leptin hormones, which are involved in hunger and satiating. So you'll find that if we don't get a good quality sleep during that time, it will affect that even more, causing us to crave very high sugary foods. And basically it makes it very hard in terms of fat loss. So there's a few things we can put in place. First of all, if you're going to exercise or train, try to do it before your night shift. So if you start at 12 a.m. or 10 p.m., whatever it is, try to train before that period. So you'll wake up, go to the gym or train at home, then go to work. You don't want to be training after your night shift, because that's the point where we're trying to wind down. You're trying to bring your stress hormones down so your brain will release melatonin to allow you to sleep. A lot of people make the mistake of training after it, and in the periods where cortisol is supposed to be coming down and melatonin is supposed to be coming up, well, now you've just hiked your cortisol up, so it's going to decrease your melatonin, stop you or prevent you from getting a good quality sleep. In terms of sleep, do your best to create a very, very, very dark environment. Blackout blinds, whether you need an eye mask, whether noise cancelling ears, earplugs, whatever you need to do to create an environment that is as dark as possible to allow your brain to release melatonin so you can get a good quality sleep. In contrast, when you wake up, hopefully it's light outside. If not, you may look at lamps that have UV on it. If you can get a UV lamp with around 20,000 flux, that will allow your brain to register its daytime and just have some kind of sync in your circadian rhythm. Just like I mentioned, the hunger signals don't reset a lot of time when we don't get a good quality sleep or where our circadian rhythms are out of whack. That makes us less satiated when we eat and also increase our hunger and appetite, specifically for very high calorie, high sugary foods. So in terms of food and nutrition, what we need to be aware of is we need to be aware of this fact, and maybe instead of fasting, because when we fast our blood sugar will drop and our cravings will get even higher, we may need to do on average three meals throughout that day, i.e. throughout our night, you know what I mean, containing a big source of protein and veg on each. That will keep our blood sugar as stable as possible and mitigate the effects of our hunger and appetite being all over the place. So obviously on this, we may need to think ahead and pre-plan what we're going to have and pre-prepare, because whether you're a nurse or you're doing night shift, if we don't and our hunger gets all over the place and we become bored, it's very easy to go to the vending machine and blow out our calories. So we want to eat the same way, 80-20, 80% mostly whole foods, protein, etc. And we can sprinkle that 10-20% in there when needed. Now, because our circadian rhythm may be out, that is stress inducing for our body. So this has two impacts. First, we need to look at the intensity of our training and realize we may not be able to train at the same intensity, i.e. difficulty, as we already do on a daily basis. This is especially if shift work, it's not regular, so you do a few nights, a few days. That makes it even worse because your circadian rhythm is totally out of whack. That increases cortisol even more. So if our recovery capability isn't there, that means we need to adjust the stress on our body. So be aware that you may need to regulate it and go sometimes, quote unquote, a little bit easier, or if you're in the gym, take a little bit longer rests. You may need to do a set or two less, depending on how your recovery is. And you know this by your fatigue, your energy, your muscle soreness, etc. We may also need to add in stress reducing activities like I talk about in other videos, some guided meditation, some deep breathing, maybe some hot cold showers after. Whatever stress reducing stuff you need to add in when you're at work, whether it's on your lunch break or whether it's before you go to bed, to really bring that cortisol down, that will all add up. If we don't do that, we're letting our body increase cortisol even more and increasing the likelihood that we'll burn out and all the other negative connotations that come with high cortisol in terms of fat loss. If you have done a few nights and now you're going back onto days, you can also look at using melatonin supplementation, again depending on what country you're in, the legislation, to reset your circadian rhythm a little bit more. So if you've done a few nights and then you want to be able to sleep that night for the rest of the days, you can use some melatonin prescription, or if you get it online, to be able to actually sleep that night and get your body into a good rhythm again. And lastly, be aware that it still comes down to your calorie model, although these other factors can influence that. So don't be of the mindset that, oh, I'm eating at 1 a.m, 2 a.m, I'm going to get fat. It doesn't come down to that. It comes down to your calories in versus calories out on a 24 and over a weekly average. So always remember that.